Hello again, everyone. This video is the first in my series Beginner to Intermediate in the game of Go. I wanted to start a series with a video about the real meat of the game, about the basics of fighting, how to create advantageous fights and prevent bad fights, how to fight actually. But just before doing that, I decided to put just one video that will help you put some even more order into your game, that will enable you to get better fights when you can, and to know how to think about a move, or about finding a move when you think that you don't know what to do. It'll really help out in many vague situations which we want to avoid. So let's begin. The topic will be the stages of a Go game. Each game of Go has 3 stages. The first stage is called the opening, and we can see an opening position here. The opening stage is where the players just sketch out their areas, their respective areas, trying to get more than the opponent, but both players do that, and both players just spread about evenly around the board, rushing to take big open areas. That is the opening phase. It's called a fuseki in Japanese, in case you're reading or want to read about this in other sources. There's the middle game stage. The middle game stage happens when suddenly a group appears which is under attack. It's between the opponent's stones, and a fight breaks out. This is one case where white decides to invade the black cell. And suddenly this white stone is between black stones, and black could decide to put pressure on it in many different ways. You can maybe think about attacking from this direction and building some territory on the right side. While attacking, he can decide to make sure this white stone doesn't ever has a base in several ways. And we will not be discussing what is right or wrong in this video, just defining the different stages of the game. The middle game stage is the fighting stage, where there are unstable groups that might be killed, might be seriously harassed by the opponent. And sometimes both players have weak groups. This is just a single example of white invading and creating a weak group of his own. And in the middle game stage, we look for moves which either make sure we can't be exploited, or which try to punish the opponent's weaknesses as much as possible. And there is the third stage of the game, which is called the Endgame stage. It's called Yosei in Japanese. And Yosei is, well, it's just a phase of the game where big open areas in the opening have been taken, everything's been sketched out, all fighting has been played out, and now only the borders of the territories have to be created. And don't knock this phase. Don't think it's not important. It may seem like nothing much happens to it, but for example, in this position, if it's black's turn, if black looks around the board and misses the fact that they can just enter white's area, and suddenly white has to figure out how he can defend all these areas, all these points that he almost were his, and white can't really split black, and this will not work. But white can't cut black at all. So even in the end game, I think many big moves can be found, and moves that will change the results of the game, even if you've lost a big fight in the middle game. Although you prefer not to lose big fights, of course. If black, for example, misses this move, it displays another move, and white suddenly grabs the chance and the difference between these two options, this and this, is just huge. This and this. Sorry, I played an extra move which shouldn't have really been played. This and this is just a huge difference. Huge difference in points. Just all. Of course, white won't do that. Won't play this move because it doesn't work. But the main point is not to talk about endgame techniques, but just to make sure that you understand the stage of the game is important. At your current level, however, most of your games will end in the middle game, where one side suddenly loses a big group, when it dies in a fight, or loses a huge amount of territory in a fight, or just lets the opponent leave in his only big area where he shouldn't have. So most of the games will probably be decided before the end game, but it's an important stage to know. The stages of the game are flexible. That is, you can just keep playing the opening phase, and suddenly the opponent might decide he doesn't want to play as in normal game. He just wants to invade, even if it's a mistake or even when it's not. It doesn't really matter. The opponent may play the opponent may play wrong moves sometimes, or even surprising moves which will sometimes be right. And the game will transition into the middle game. You don't see such a move and think, well, how can I take the big area? No. You see weak stones, and you see stones that you can attack, that you can really profit by attacking, and we'll talk a lot more about that in the next lecture. And you go for it. The fight has begun. It's the middle game now. If the fight will end and white's group will find itself outside in the center in a few moves, black won't find any way to attack it, surround it any way, then we may get back to the opening phase, where players go back to finding big moves. But notice how the stages of the game can help you, and especially in the beginning when you're not used to thinking about these things. When there are no weak groups on the board, just play normal opening moves. When the opponent doesn't leave anything to be attacked, of course, if the opponent decides to not defend the stone of his, stone at 017, sure, he didn't defend, you can think about how to attack. Do I want to kick it? Do I want to pincer it? There are different ways, and this is not the video about attacking techniques. But sure, if the opponent gives you the opportunity to attack a weak stone, go for it. You don't need to be asked twice. But until such an opportunity is given, just play normal moves, get to the big areas, to the corners, prevent your opponent from closing them easily, or enclose your own, and close the sides. If the opponent gives you a target, attack it. If not, finish the opening. Don't start a bad fight. And endgame moves, which is the last stage, even if you have a very big endgame, if you know that, why would you want to play them? When there are more important issues, when there are still fights around, groups can die, when there are still big areas, open areas on the board. Just knowing which stage of the game you're in can really help direct your thought. At first, after a little amount of time, not very long, you usually know what stage, what kind of move to look at. But even much stronger players, even strong single-digit Q players or some lowdowns, do make the mistake of playing moves out of stage. Mistakes which, when I see professional players analyze their students' games, sometimes they say, this is just, why did you play an endgame move or an opening move while there was a fight going on? It just doesn't make any sense. An endgame move while there were big opening moves around. And it does happen sometimes. These things are very good to just notice them. Once you get to notice these things and don't play moves out of stage, don't go into the middle game stage just because you want to fight now. If you don't have a good fight to start and don't have a good invasion to play, then why do it? Why put yourself in pack when you don't have to? Give the opponent control of the game, and we'll discuss that concept a lot in later videos. So this is just to give you some food for thought as when you're looking for your moves. And the next video will immediately get into the juicy part of fighting, basics of fighting, types of fights that there are, how to fight when a fight is created, what to avoid, what you want to get, and many other stuff related to fighting. And we'll deal with that next time. Bye!